As a senior leader joining an organization, if the person sees a toxic culture across, how can they shield themselves and be successful in the role by changing it? I might direct this one to you, Tara, actually, first.
Yeah, I think there's a few things kind of together. There's, a toxic culture, and then there's sort of the role. With culture, you will not be able to, as a single person, change the whole culture. It's kind of the way things are done there. You can be a force for good, and sometimes we need to adapt culturally to things. So take an example. If there's a culture of people working in silos and throwing things over the fence, you might have to adapt to that culture and then understand within those cultural boundaries and the way things are done here, how can you indeed be successful in your role. So as an example, if things are thrown over the fence, I need to add more visibility into what is within my remit or my scope. And I also need to be really clear on progress of work because it's, within my area. Or I need to do more communication and to ask and escalate for things to be done from another area. It's a personal choice on how much you want to call out these things and be a force for good. And I think it matters on the level of courage you have. It also might depend on the level of seniority you have. And it also depends on the trust and safety you have with people to call some of those things out. So I've definitely had conversations with people to say, I see that was basically a really big cultural no-no. Do you feel like you can call it out right now? And they've said no. So then we're in a position where we're working around it. Can this person still be very successful in their role despite the culture? Absolutely. But it's always a very big factor in terms of how successful an organization works together, how safe people feel at the workplace. And I think there is that bigger question of going, will you survive in the long term? You might be able to do really well in this existing role and make it work. But is this a place that you want to be longer term? And that's something only you can answer.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Sharon, did you have anything you wanted to add about this managing, how to manage yourself in a toxic culture?
I think that the only thing I'd kind of add is, kind of calling. I'm not sure of the details of that particular question, but with regards to like calling people out, I think it's also, there's a way to do it too. Whether I think it's important not to kind of call people out in front of others, like in a public setting, obviously as well. It needs to be kind of, you pull somebody aside and then try to see what's going on for them as well. I think it's always, we always kind of tend to get on the defense if somebody's saying something that's, whatever it is, inappropriate. But I think it's important to like, what's going on for you? Like, what's happening here? And how can we work together to try and transform this? Because this isn't helpful in our environment. The other thing I'd just add is, is it like you be the change that you want to see? So it's just really making sure that your behavior is true to your values and isn't enforcing or influencing that toxicity, and don't that's a powerful thing, to be able to act in the way that you're acting and just stay true to your values and your truth that is healthy, and hopefully it can be modeled. It doesn't necessarily that you have to intervene. It's like, well, this is how I am, and it's a little seed, but it can grow.
Yeah, I think just thinking about it a bit more, you have your bar for what you want to be as a leader. And the more experience and the longer you are on this earth, you need to make a choice of, do I bend and flex to what is asked of me, and what things will I stick up for? Mm-hmm. And in this situation, you will get to a point where you will, because of that toxic culture, you will have a tension point of whether you need to back your own values and what you believe is right, and how you go about doing that. There's lots of nuances in there, versus you're like, okay, well, the leader said I do this and I do agree with it, but I'm just going to sort of pass it all down the line. And that is a very difficult choice to make as a leader. And sometimes you just go through it, but it upsets you. Sometimes you call it out. Sometimes you sort of wait through the storm and then you address it with people on the side. But those things will happen. And they say, good sailors are made in rough seas. This is going to be a rough sea if you're having all of those competing forces against who you are as a leader. And that's why I point to the long term, to go, after a while, that's tiring. And how can I be that force for good? Or how can I be in an environment where I feel like I'm going to be able to be the leader I want to be consistently in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Tara.